On the build show today, we're retrofitting a ventilating dehumidifier. So here's the scoop. This house was built in 2010. One of the guys that works with me built it, but we didn't have a dehumidifier in place. And he's noticed, especially in the spring and the fall, that his humidity rises in the house. So we've got a really cool unit from Aprilaire that will both bring in fresh air and will dehumidify the whole house. Today's video is sponsored by Aprilaire. Let's get going. All right, guys, come on up. Join me in the mechanical room upstairs. Sure. Okay, guys, here's the scoop. We're in an upstairs attic. This is an air-conditioned space. Above our drywall here, you can see a little bit of the spray foam poking out. So this is part of the air-conditioned envelope of the house. You'll notice this is the original ductwork and furnaces from 10 years ago. This is kind of funny. Jeff from Air Right left a roll of his tape, and I happen to notice this is the same exact SureTape AF100 as when the house was built in 2010. All this ductwork, the tape, looks like it's in perfect shape, which is of course a testament to good products, but also keeping them in the envelope, the AC envelope, a big deal. Now there's the original ventilation controller. That's dead now, that's not working. And originally when the house was built, both of these furnaces had a 6-inch hard pipe, or pardon me, flex pipe, from the outside to the return air side of the furnace. And that's how they got fresh air. And that little ventilation controller would open this damper and would basically let air in on a schedule of like 10 minutes every hour, that sort of thing. So what we've done is we plugged those up. Those are no longer functional. And instead, we've taken that fresh air input and taken it from the outside into this right here. Now what you're looking at here is a dehumidifier that has this extra bolt-on, which is really cool, which is a fresh air controller and a damper all in one. So on the top, this is the fresh air coming from the outside. And on the bottom here, this is a return air that's been brought from the house into the return side of this dehumidifier. And they kind of V-shape in to the dehumidifier on this side. Now what's cool about this is it's pretty easy to retrofit. If you didn't have a fresh air input, you'd have to cut that. Because this house had it already, it was really easy just to dump it into this side, the return side on this Aprilaire. Now this is the Aprilaire model number E100V, V for ventilator. So this is good for 100 pints of dehumidification over a 24-hour period. That's a lot of dehumidification. And then when that air is dehumidified, it's going to be a little bit hot. And so we're going to dump it into the supply side of the furnaces. So you'll notice Jeff, when he installed it, put this Y on there. And then we've got these two 8-inch ducts, which are going onto the furnaces or into the furnaces on the supply side of things. Very cool system. And the thing I like about this install, well, a couple things I like about it. Number one, now the Aprilaire controller is going to control when and how much fresh air we want. We could turn that on or off depending on the season. We're also now going to bring that air in through this filter before it goes into the dehumidifier. Now before we brought it into the filter on the furnace, but now we've got a separate filter for this Aprilaire dehumidifier here, and then that air is going to come in and be dehumidified. So for instance, in the summer, in July, when that air came in, if it was humid, this AC would probably be going and it would drop the humidity. But in the spring and the fall, when it's, let's say, 80 degrees out and 80% humidity out, if we brought fresh air into the return side of these two furnaces, 10 minutes every hour, let's say, there'd be plenty of hours a day that these ACs wouldn't be running because the thermostat would say, I don't need any colder. However, the house's humidity would tick, tick, tick up. And so there was plenty of times when this house's humidity would be in the upper 50s, maybe even tipping over that 60% point. And that's really where we want to maintain our houses, somewhere between 40 and 60% relative humidity. At my house, I have my dehumidifier set at 50% relative humidity year round, and it just runs when it needs to. Now in the summertime, especially in the heat of Texas, you're not going to need to use your dehumidifier a whole lot, but it's really those shoulder seasons, meaning those few months in the spring, those few months in the fall, and certainly in the winter time when that dehumidifier is going to make a really, really big difference. Another thing I wanted to point out, which was kind of cool, because we're in this air-conditioned space, number one, I'm not sweating even though it's 90 degrees out already today. You'll also notice he's got a little supply duct.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Siri, I'm shooting a video. Can you get back to me on this? So this little supply right here is kind of cool. I've never seen one of these before. This is just a cut-in. So the duct guy 12 years ago cut a hole on this. And then this opens when it's opened all the way up. My guess is this something like maybe 5 to 10 CFMs. And then if you want to shut it down and damper it down, just circle it down. And there's the offsetting. That's kind of cool. I think I might add one of those to my house. Pretty smart. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Straightforward. I want to encourage you that if you've got a relatively new high-performance house and maybe you've already got a fresh air input, consider going up to a ventilating dehumidifier. If you've got an older house with humidity problems, if you're regularly getting above 55%, 60% humidity in your house, a dehumidifier can make a big difference. And not just in the South, too. There's plenty of places in the U.S., all through the north, that have humid times of the year. You may not need it all 12 months, just about like we do here in Texas, but there's plenty of times that can make a really big difference. I'll put a link to the April Air model number that we used here, and they also have some great information, so I'll put a link in that in the description. But don't be afraid of this. This is a pretty straightforward install. There's a lot of local HVAC contractors that can do this for you in a pretty straightforward manner. This was really a one-day, couple of hour install, and it's going to make a really big difference to this house. Oh, last thing I did want to mention, Jeff, when he installed this, also put it on a spring damper system. These probably have not a whole lot of vibration when they're running, but it's best to not put it right on the attic deck, especially because the master bedroom is right below us. So Jeff, by hanging this from the rafters and putting on these springs, we're not going to have any noise. You're not going to hear this at all. Very, very quiet when it runs. All right, guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.